All right, let's see. Copy link. All right, I think we are all organized. Good morning, good morning. Let's back that up a little bit too. There we go. Good morning. Let's see what I can do with this today. I gotta get these supplies over here. I was forgetting something. Get set up here a little bit. These brooches, stuff to mix with. Got our palette there, in there, and then we can get some water on this stuff too. As we get all set up, get some people in here, huh? Running a little behind this morning, but not too bad, I hope. Get this palette and some water. All right, we got water, we got palette, and some wax. Those are go on top. So we're not doing a great job of pairing, but oh well. Headphones. Josana. All right. We got everybody out. Did a job reasserting our drawing yesterday. So let's see, let's get the light out. There you are. It didn't fall far. The lid came off the white a little too easy. There's my retarder over there, or the, come on, move forward. These, stool chair I have, sometimes it's like a little resistant to, moving immediately. Stuff out, a little paint for the, skin tone, or stick with the, help myself out, is to stick with the basic Zorn palette for the skin for now, which will simplify my life a bit. I'm going to buy a big tube of white at some point. Let's see. Alright, and a good brush for this. Not really, probably. Maybe this one. I always have a little trouble with acrylic just because it goes down a little differently than I'm used to. But, you know, that's the challenge, right? I need to get a smaller collapsible tub for the acrylic stuff. And one more thing, which was medium. Not clear gesso. Really easy in medium. And acrylic's always been, those that weren't in here last time, acrylic's always been kind of one of those mediums that I've struggled with to a certain degree because I had a hard time with a student, and then when I came across oil painting, it's just so much easier in a lot of ways for me. So I've had occasions recently kind of bring it back to myself, and thought, hey, you know, maybe it's got some utility I hadn't thought about as much as I should have. I'll move that bucket over here just so it's where my hand expects it to be. Might need to sit down and rearrange my art supplies today. We'll start with something simple. It's always one of my keys to doing art is start with something relatively easy. So like, you know, a thigh would be a lot easier to paint than the face. My poor dog. So I'll start maybe all these, use this one color for all the upward facing planes here. I'm just put some socks here, but I'll paint over that later. tempera style on this, which is basically to use hatching strokes to create the form. Stretch it out there. Yeah, we spent a lot of time kind of looking at acrylic illustration masters lately. People like John Drew Poloncarz or Michael Whalen. Do a really amazing job with acrylics. Do his hand up here, so the arm here is in the light. I'm mostly concerned again about getting the form on here. Oh, that's too much paint. You got to pay attention to that paint quantity, right? So move this up just a little bit. There we go. That's better. A little trick I saw that I think is really handy is basically using mixing the retarder into a spray bottle, and then you can use it to spray over your paints on your palette rather than trying to mix it in directly. Let's try to put another layer on top. One of the other troubles people have with any kind of water-based media, so whether that's wash or acrylic or watercolor, is it tends to dry darker than what they think it will when they put it down. And so when you put it down, it's still full of water, since that's the medium you're working with mostly. And so as a result, it appears transparent, more transparent than it would if you were, so I guess that's there. Dry brush that in there, so we have something where that skin will be. And so yeah, it appears when you mix it on your palette, it looks a lot lighter, a lot often than when you put it down because of the light inside of the paint as a result of the water there. So, this is something you have to be able to anticipate. And I'm definitely not a acrylic maestro or anything. I haven't really done that many finished. Because I did my first finished acrylic piece in like years and years, like almost 20 years during my semester last year. So Labas, Ritas, Visiems, Aplankitiems. So yeah, it's like have some safety strategies, like starting with the easy stuff first. Let's see what we're doing here. Careful not to over precious with the original drawing in the sense of avoiding any updates or fixes I should make to it. Alright, so let's get in some warmer tints, stronger color. Medium in there too. Sharpen up that tip. Yeah, so it's just I thought I would shift things around a little bit by playing around some of these acrylic tools a little bit for a bit. Hour-long morning warm-ups. See how long it takes. Kind of brush that out a little bit. So just trying to follow this kind of standard-ish procedure. Nose. I'll have to redraw eventually anyway, with a super tiny brush. Put a lot of that color in there. So that color right there. Some of this gray-green, black, and ochre. Oh, we got our first bot of the day. Take care of that real quick. Alright, looks like it's over on the twitchy side. Block. Block. And poof, they're gone. So I think the strategy I'm trying to use here is kind of follow the bands of color and temperature shifts. First, I think I need to knock some of the values back on the top side, but help create the sense of lighting we're looking for. These are the contours that follow the strokes. What? Let's see if I should spray some of this retardant on it and stuff now. Soften those eyes and that. Soften these edges. Bring this up. Oof. Alright. Let's put a light on the other side actually. Yeah, I saw a video with, well, I saw a post by Michael Whalen, who's a really great fantasy illustrator. He used acrylic mostly, and he was commenting that he prefers the not thick acrylics, which I thought was interesting. So that's what I have. They have all this in thickened tubes. Um, so that goes right there. Good morning. Color back in there. I think with painting is a lot of times you need some context in order for things to work the way you intend. And so you have to put something down, and often you end up reworking what you originally put down. To a certain degree. So it's always something to kind of keep in mind. Trying to stick with a super basic palette here too. For the skin, at least for now. So hopefully that'll work, right? Oh, look, another bot. Good morning, bots. Love me bots, right? Let's see, where are you at? There you are. Man. This is really small. I think I wasn't anticipating. The original plan I had was just like to do a little doodle. I was like, well, why not turn it into a composition? So why not, right? This kind of sets me up later on. I can inject other colors into it as needed. But we can all thank our Lord and Savior Zorn. The great painter, Z-O-R-N, Anders. He had this wonderful limited palette he liked to use. And still respectfully use it today. To our benefit, I think. Yeah, if you're not familiar with Zorn, definitely worth looking up. He's sort of a Swedish. There's a bunch of different kind of almost impressionistic painters in the mid late 19th century, early 20th century, and every country seemed to have their own. Like I call it various versions of John Singer Sargent. But Zorn was a painter up in Sweden, and used this. It's very limited palette, which is basically we use vermilion, but we use cad red, yellow ochre, and ivory black to kind of replicate his palette, and a lot of artists still use it today. To do, especially if they're starting out learning painting, and that it's a really helpful, simple palette that's easy to control. Obviously, this will need a lot more work at different points, but gives you a good kind of foundation for the painting and the drawing. Especially for skin tones. So if you're practicing painting of any kind, definitely recommend picking up that basic palette as a good starting point. This allows you to control color and temperature in a really nice way. I think, anyway. It's definitely a long-term favorite of mine for helping me with that. Let's zoom in on that face. It doesn't have to be a perfect likeness, but this should be believable. Ooh. Let's see. Face is always where you gotta focus, right? So for me, there's a little bit too much tooth on this. Just like a little bit too much. That's my own fault. Use a roller. Put it down. Other thing to kind of be wary of when painting features onto a face, it doesn't feel like you painted on like a sticker, even if it's accurate. It's got to feel like it's, you know, they're part of the face, obviously. This is where I should break out those super tiny brushes. I want to at least get the feeling of the face in there today. And it's accurate layout. One of the tricks too is kind of to paint around your detail. So paint the detail like over paint its edges a little bit, and then come back in. So I'm moving this eyebrow up, so I need to add some color underneath it. That's a larger area, so it'll be a lot easier to add stuff in there by painting over. That eyebrow a little bit. I think I'm painting around the iris just a little bit, rather than trying to paint the iris perfectly the first time. And carefully painting around it, you get, it's often easier to do detailing that way. Oops, too much. You start to kind of get where you want to go eventually on here. Come back over here and paint in this dots back in here a bit. Simplified. Let's see. I'm getting there, though, I think. I'll sharpen it up later. But, definitely feels much better. Clean up these ones. And we'll definitely have a need for surrounding local colors to kind of get mixed in here, but hopefully it sets up for an easier time of doing that later on. Time, 54 minutes, huh? I might go a little bit longer. I'll just paint out. Maybe whip out those little super tiny cheap synthetics I bought a while back. Oof. All right. And then a little temperature adjustment. And capture some of this. Good morning. Good morning. Let's see. There. More black. There we go. Enough. Come on. Come out of there. Let's see. Sip of my coffee in here. Yeah. We should save these finishing edges like that for later, but you know, why not? Right? Look at the ring of power, and I'm like, you know, why not? And Frodo, right? Or Frodo, Bilbo. Let's see. What do we think? Okay. good. Okay. Put this in the gray too. All right. Use this palette to throw some other things on here. Let's see if we got a different brush that we could use with this. It's already out and open. Too big. Maybe this bright one right here might be good. Use up some of this paint. Good morning. What time is it? 11:20. I'll stick on a little bit longer so I can take me to lunchtime. A lighter edge. Maybe a cooler one. And this is gray. A little bit of green in there. A bit of that. There you go, starting to pop, right? A little bit. There's some like red tones in there too. We should probably include. There's that edge over there. Start to get somewhere, I think. Let's get this brown hair going. And a middle tone. Should have black hair, but we're going to make it a bit lighter just to get it blocked in. Always way to get the background a bit more painted before I really lock down the hair. But we can get some tone on top of it. Liking where we're going here. Get some other paint around the head a little bit just to indicate some plant stuff. So get some other colors out. I'm breaking a little rule here and not put things in an exact spot. Oh, good. Yeah, I found like I'm mixing some reference I got off of ArtStation. I think it was in a free pack. It's like a wide angle lens pack. It came from, I think, Graphic. So if you go to ArtStation, you kind of sift through the reference packs. There's different ones. And then I found an outfit on Pinterest. It's kind of just a bunch of clothes. So she's wearing like this hood thing over her head that's got those ears. Actually, I should make them bigger. But we'll see how it goes. It was supposed to be like a really super quick doodle, and then I got carried away. So I'm not getting sick. So let's separate this hair from the background a little bit. Get a little sparkle in there. But so that's where it's all kind of coming from. So I'm kind of trying to mix my reference sources up a little bit here. Let's see how that goes. Put the charter on real quick. Things set up for tomorrow. Put these glazes in there. So that's what I'm kind of doing. One of the things I'm trying to play with, just messing around more with my imagination as well as my design. So I have a pose and general details from the reference that was free. And then I'm mixing it with these other sources. So it's funny, I was student was complaining. I was like, "How do you move stuff around the composition so it works right? Avoid tangents." I'm like, "Well, you just move it. Don't leave it where it's at. Take it from one place and put it in a different one. Adjust the angle of that limb or that piece of architecture, or the scale of things, or whatever. Move it." It's okay. That's why you do the whole process. You go, from step to step, and you uncover where the problems are as you make your picture, and fix it as you go. This one I didn't do any real preparation for beyond finding the reference and rough sketching it out yesterday. So it could bump into some serious problems along the way pretty easily. But optimally, as you're working on your research and your thumbnail and all that, you kind of resolve those problems as you go as a way of just as a general kind of standard practice of fixing things. Can't anticipate everything, but should be able to solve a lot of problems pretty early on. I threw that on the floor. she went there. Now, what's the words of Annie Dillard? What is a god to do? Right, you're in charge of your picture. You tell me. It's like I recognize an error I made in how I put the gesso down over the drawing. Keeping that in mind for that. I didn't want a super textured surface, but I have one. I put it there, so it's my fault. I have to deal with a certain amount of dry brushing, which can work really well too. There's nothing wrong with dry brushing per se, but it wasn't my intended method. Here, there's a little brown in there, a little yellow, red. Yeah, but now the kind of investment I'm putting in this picture, I kind of wish I had done this larger, but I think this is still a good learning experience for me. Starting to work in terms of value patterns, right? that. Right, there, so I'm just going to fill in that gap. Yeah, if I can do like 20 of these before I feel like I'm actually that competent with them. That's perfect. Alright, so maybe some stuff I can set up. For tomorrow. Get some more of these shadow areas. Use up some of this paint. hand back there. Forgot about that. I'll deal with that later, I guess. That's fine. The advantage of using limited palette is makes it easier to keep track of things a certain way. Trying to use up the leftover paint on here. And I think we'll call it a session after that. Got a little bit of a late start this morning. Which actually was okay a little bit because it was a little warmer outside when I was taking the dog out. And I can't complain about that too much. Let's try to set up some patterns here for putting stuff into the background, leaves and such. And come back in with opaque stuff later. To work with that. Let's see, I can't really see that too much. Oh, there we go. Not too much. Let's see this over the light. Some greens around. I can mess with later. Oops, sorry about that. Block the view there. Just scatter some of these other colors around that I know I want to use later on. While we're here, right? Got this cadmium red to use up. With that, mix the two together. Distribute some of this in here. Arm I spent a lot of time on, right? Later on, I'll kind of, well, probably overlap a little bit there too, but later on I'll kind of work back to front, and I'll let the background overlap the foreground just a little bit to finish as I go. Some other reds in other places so it doesn't feel so isolated. Good morning. Just trying to finish things up here, but it's a little dark for you. But trying to get rid of some of the glare for me. Just trying to use up some of my colors here to distribute around a little bit. And get ready for another session tomorrow on this in the morning. We'll get a bunch of good stuff done today. Yeah, they're part of the project. So good morning. LW. Did you look up John Jude Poloncarz? I have a whole book of his stuff. I don't know if he's active anymore as an illustrator. Or alive, for that matter. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's funny though that those book covers though. he illustrated them. I read that first book, that Aragon book, and I didn't like it at all. People were like, it was written by a 16-year-old or a 14-year-old or however old he was. And I'm like, well, maybe you should have waited a couple of years. But I know they were really popular for a while. Like, a lot of people really liked them. I've got a whole book over here. Where's that? There you are. This is his book. And so the dragon ones are in here. Some nude stuff in here, so I have to be careful. But like, here's one of his covers for that series. These are all done with acrylics. Yeah, like what I remember about the books is that it was a great cover, but there's some nice, really great trees and stuff. And I should pull this book out while I'm working to look at. But it's got like a lot of like the grim kind of horror fantasy. Here's some Lord of the Rings. Somewhere in here I thought was the blue. There's the blue one. There we go. Okay, here you go. So here's his sketches for it, and here's the cover. He has a particular style. And here's another one. So here's the sketch, and then here's this. I'm not sure. It's what's the art? Its origins, the art of John Jude Palencar, however. I'm not sure how available the book is. I got this a long time ago. I might have been a student still when I bought this book. It has like a lot of like. He was big into like horror stuff. But these are all again acrylic paintings. Like this is a self-portrait. It's really great. I love his bark. Very stylized bark and branches. So some of the stuff is obviously inspired by a painter named Odd Nerdrum. Like this one feels very much like an Oud Nerdrum painting. But or this one right here, like this guy's eyeballs. So, yeah, but I don't know if like when did this book come out? Let's see, at least after 2005 or 2006. So that's some of the artwork in here. Let's see, it came out in 2006, so it was just after a couple years after I graduated. Yeah, it's if you just look his name up on Amazon or whatever, yeah, Pale N Car. So P-A-L-E-N-C-A-R. Pale N Car. But I'm kind of revisiting a lot of like the stuff I have around its acrylic because I had to teach acrylic painting last semester, and hadn't really used the medium in a long time, as you can probably tell. So I'm trying to set this up. So I've spent like an hour on this yesterday, and then a little over an hour, almost 2 hours on this today, mostly working on the details of the body there. And then tomorrow I can come back in and start hopefully bringing it all together in the morning for a bit. But so yeah, because I hadn't really done finished acrylic since I was in college for classes. I did one last semester. It was more or less finished. So I did this. This is limited palettes. I'm only using 3 colors in white here. It's actually the same palette I used for painting her skin. Well, what is I was just mixing some reference up. So um, and so I have like those free reference packs you can find on ArtStation from Graphit. They have like sample packs you can get for free. Some of the other people that make reference have other ones too, where it's like it says it's $1 and then you give them it has like a code or something in there to get it for free. So I have a bunch of those, along with ones I've actually paid for too. But it was a wide angle set, so I was taking a pose from that, mixing it with like some reference stuff I found on Pinterest for outfits, and just kind of trying to bring the two together. Um, and with all the AI nonsense going on, I feel like more and more I want to work with physical media. Um, but so yeah, that's what it's from. So I'm just trying to kind of blend the two together in hopefully a way that'll be believable in the end. But I like my little tree guy. I thought he was fun. This would be a lot easier for me to do in oils, but you know, you do have to wait a lot. So yeah, so I've kind of got this built up. Tomorrow I can come in and kind of adjust some of the lighting, start building up some of the background stuff, and then usually, even if I'm painting digitally, usually what I do is I try to get the overall thing in, and then I'll work from kind of background to foreground, kind of stepping my way forward through the painting. And so I'm mostly just trying to get everything in place. And I really hadn't intended to go this far with this. It was just supposed to be a doodle kind of thing, playing around with my airbrush and my acrylics and some of these other things, and then I ended up going further. Yeah. Well, it's nice. Acrylic doesn't take a huge amount of space, but yeah, it's definitely a commitment to a certain degree. I do have a big desk. I found this big drafting table for $100 on Facebook Marketplace. It's 6 feet long and like 3 feet deep. And then I found a place called Metal Mart that sells sheet metal, and I bought a big steel plate. And that sits on top, so I can use magnets on here, stick everything down with that. But yeah, definitely takes, physical media does take some space. And if you're not in school or whatever, I don't often have that. But anyway, I think that's it for today. So I'll be back tomorrow, and well, maybe later today with other stuff, but definitely tomorrow morning. So thanks to everybody that came in. Appreciate it. And talk to you all later.